Yeah, I got a video message come up here.
Alrighty. Yeah, there we go. We're having some technical difficulty in the beginning of the interview. This is John Carrots, and I'm here with Tony Perez, and we're here on OSH Radio. That's my YouTube, and I have OSHradio.com, which used to be an internet radio station. Now we have news and stuff, just for Tony to know. Now, Tony's down under in Australia, and he is a outstanding martial artist. How's that? What? What's that old saying? You're outstanding in your field.
I feel okay. All right.
It's a pun there, but me and Tony have met because we're both in the ambassador program training under Ed Parker Jr. in his Paxil martial arts, which is a very interesting martial art. Or, well, it's Paxil arts. It's not martial arts, I should say that. That's the whole idea. Paxil is for peace and not for war, like the martial arts. But that's how I met Tony, and we've been having a good chat here ourselves. So Tony, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and tell the people out there that might watch and listen to this about how you got started and what led you to being with the Paxil Arts.
Yeah, look, thanks for the opportunity, John. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and thanks for this opportunity. What got me started was a girl. With a girl. Gosh, I was a youngster way back in 1973, 13 or 14 years old. I'm 63 now. In Sydney, Australia. A guy that I was a classmate of mine was studying this thing called Taekwondo, and I had a bit of a crush on his older sister. So using my superior male logic, I figured, well, the more time I spend with my mate, the more chance I might get of getting to know his sister a little bit better. So I pestered my mum and dad to let me sign up to do Taekwondo lessons. And back then, it's what's referred to today as traditional Taekwondo. It wasn't what's seen in the mainstream today. My instructor was a gentleman by the name of Ri Chong Chul, who's regarded as the father of Taekwondo in Australia. He was one of General Choi's senior guys out of his international demonstration team, and he came to Australia via Singapore, and he was a former instructor to the Korean Marines, and so classes were taught with a military precision, a military philosophy. It was pretty much all adults in the class. I was 13 or 14 at the time. All the instructions were in Korean, and I remember this gentleman, just the presence that he commanded, and I couldn't understand a word he was saying. And I was way down the back of the class, and of course everyone was much taller than me. So it was a case of monkey see, monkey do, and something about it connected with me at a really deep level, and I committed myself to training and doing the best I could, and then I came under the watchful eye of his senior instructor at the time, a gentleman by the name of Hans Frick, who's a German, and he's still active today. He's in his 80s now, and he still works with live cutting, the samurai sword. So he took me under his wing, and I do private lessons of a Saturday morning, and I went to school just 15 to 20 minutes up the road, and the opportunity came about, and I was actually given the keys to the studio. And every lunchtime for 4 years, I would walk from school, and I would open up the studio, and I would sweep the floor and take phone calls, open mail from Mr. E, print uniforms, our logos on our uniforms and things like that. And I'd take 20 minutes to walk to school, 20 minutes to do that, and 20 minutes to walk back for lunch, and I did that every day for 4 years.
And you did it all uphill, of course. No, I'm kidding.
Uphill uphill and down Dale. But
no, it's a joke because that's what they always say, those old stories. But we had talked beforehand about. I remember those days too when I started, and you were kids. There were no kids classes. You were thrown in with the adults, which was rough on you. It made it rougher on you to be in with the adults, but like we said, it built character, and it was good for us in the long run. And I shared a similar history with that, and you know that is it helps make us who we are today, I think.
look, I've now that I've left a few footprints on the planet, I see it much more clearly than what I did back then. You know, it was the Bruce Lee era. You know, Enter the Dragon had just came out, and everybody wanted to throw that right leg side kick or jump over the top of people's heads, and you know, and that's what I lived and breathed it. You know, and it just became a part of me. And then some years later, my family, we moved to a small little town by the beach in northern New South Wales, which is about a 12-hour drive north of Sydney. There was no martial arts, no karate there at all. It was just a little country seaside town. And I would have been about 15 or 16 maybe. So I was armed with the Taekwondo Bible. If anybody that knows that, was the blue book back in the day. And you know, I've still got it to this day. It's dog-eared and yellowed and everything like that, but gosh, it's got the pages of my life in it. And so armed with that little book, I just started teaching some of the local. It was a way of getting to know new friends at a new school. And you know, I was about 15 or 16, and I started teaching, and then eventually there was a Goju class that started up at some point, and I trained in Goju for I don't know a year or so. I didn't take any rank or anything. I enjoyed it, but it just didn't have the feel that I got from doing Taekwondo. And then eventually an offshoot Taekwondo school started up at another regional town, which is about an hour and a half drive from where we were living. I started work by this stage after graduating year 12 at high school, and so twice a week I'd drive that hour and a half each way, and I'd train and get beat up, and it's a case of get hit, get up, or get out at that point. I did that for a number of years, and then I eventually took my first degree black belt test, which was 10 years in the making. It took me 10 years to get my first degree because of relocation and stuff like that. And then about 6 months after that, I got my formal coaching certificate and started teaching. So I was teaching 2 nights a week, going to train myself with my instructor 2 nights a week, and then on the 5th night, on the Friday night, my wife and I would do aerobics together. So that was about the only time we got to spend with each other. So I ended up spending about 20 years with Taekwondo, at my 4th degree eventually. And about that time, I came in touch with Tony Perez from Canada, and he just blew me away with how to start thinking about martial arts differently, about confrontational psychology and about belief systems and tactical dialogue, and this is in the very early stages of his development. So I started to freelance a little bit. So I became a little bit eclectic. Even though I'd been training Taekwondo along the way, as I said, I've done a little bit of Goju, a little bit of Wing Chun. And the next thing you know, I'm just freelancing and doing Tony Kwando, whatever you want to call it.
We'd also talked about official karate, an old magazine that we both loved, and how and we both loved looking. They'd give you techniques, and they'd give you techniques. I remember even they'd give you whole katas in them sometimes too.
Yep.
That you could practice and go through, and that was a great extra tool also.
That's all we had. Like we lived and breathed for that. Like it'd be every couple of months we'd get the latest issue of, Black Belt or Official Karate or Karate Illustrated or Fighting Stars. And I mean, I'd be, standing outside our local newsagent before it opened, just waiting for the hope and hoping that the magazine was going to be there. And yeah, you'd get these technique sequences and you'd learn them, and then you'd go and train them the next night. And then eventually, we started getting some of the early, VHS videos.
I had to laugh earlier when we talked about VHS videos. I even had a couple 8mm films of like Long Fist. I think I had a Long Fist one, and I think I had a Praying Mantis one on 8mm.
Wow.
Because I had a projector, and so I even had some of those, which really dates us.
Yeah, well, it does, and it's interesting you say that because I remember an old 8mm reel-to-reel thing of the senior instructors for General Choi teaching the American GIs in Vietnam. And I remember it to this day, doing, bayonet disarms and stuff like that. And through the eyes of a 14-year-old, I'm going, oh my gosh, look at this. So yeah, I've forgotten about that 8mm. Oh my god.
Yeah, so, but that does date us, because even I liked VHS tapes. I had a lot of things on VHS, and now I've rebuilt my stable of stuff and information with DVDs, and I've also started building some things I have on. I got some here. I got some flash drives with stuff on that I got off other buddies, and we talked about, well, we'll get into next how you got into Kenpo, but I think it's on this one. I think I got 5.0, the whole 5.0 system of Jeff's on here that I got off another instructor buddy that he had him. So
that's what happens. That's the evolution of it.
And as you watch it, the first thing it says is these things should not be duplicated, and you're like, oh yeah, but
FBI, yeah.
So now I know you said before we were talking that you got into Kenpo, but you were always marked as the Taekwondo guy because you came from Taekwondo. What first got you interested in doing the Kenpo then? How did you make the transition? You got to Kenpo, then you were with Tony, and then how did you get into the Kenpo?
There was probably about a 10-year period between when I formally stopped doing Taekwondo and formally started doing Kenpo. So in that 10-year period where I was freelancing and I was trying to figure out my way without ever really knowing what my way was. It was just, right. Oh, I like that. And I saw a technique sequence in, I think it was...
A la carte. Maybe we should call that a la carte.
A la carte, there you go. But I was eating off the entire menu, all right? It wasn't just the meat. I was taking the entree and the dessert.
The buffet.
The buffet, yeah, that's it. So I came across a technique sequence of Nick Serio, and I remember it. I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, that's really cool." On the way to doing a side kick, you could do a knee kick. The motion of Kenpo, and a version of Five Swords, which I didn't know the significance of back then. But I've gone, oh, that's pretty cool. So that would have been in the mid-'80s, I suppose. And then at some point, I ended up getting some VHS tapes of Professor Serio. And then eventually I came across Larry Tatum. And so this was in the late 80s. So I had this awareness of what American Kenpo was. And because of what I was learning from Tony Blauer and like doing Hubud and Chisao and bobbing and weaving and all this sort of stuff, which was totally foreign to Taekwondo. So I was already moving differently, and the love that I had for Taekwondo was really in the artistic side of it. I love the forms. I love the old basics. I just love the artistry in it. It was the forms thing that was me. I enjoyed the sparring, but I just don't have enough mongrel in me, as we say here in Australia. I don't have enough mongrel in me. I never had that killer instinct, if you like. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I just like the artistry. So I'd one day, fast forward, God, 10 years or whatever it was, I walked into a news agent, and as I was prone to do, picked up a magazine, and the very first page I opened it to, there was an advertisement there that Jeff Speakman was coming to Australia for one of his first visits, and obviously, big fan of Perfect Weapon, and tried to replicate some of the stuff that he was doing there without ever really knowing what it was. I might have been able to replicate the movement, but never really knew what it was. So I thought, this is pretty cool. I'd really like to go to that. So a couple of my students, we went along, and at the time, Jeff was represented in Australia by a gentleman by the name of Tom Cullen, who was from Ireland, and he had been working with a program called Kenpo for Kids. And at that point, I was the father of a 6 or 7 year old daughter, and I just started teaching her whatever it was I was teaching her. I was calling it Taekwondo because I love Taekwondo. And then I just fell in love with this Kenpo for Kids program. So I was really impressed with everything Mr. Speakman did and what Mr. Cullen was doing with the kids. And then I said, sign me up. So I took my 4th degree black belt off and put a white belt back on. And I was, every once a month I'd fly down to Sydney and train with Mr. Cullen. And then on the alternate month he'd fly up and stay at my home, and then he'd train me. So I just immersed myself in it, and then I went through the whole process, and originally this was before 5.0 came on the scene, and I did that for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was, and then I had a very particular set of beliefs and principles, and I sort of got to a crossroads, and I thought, nah, this doesn't fit me. I love the art, and I love the Mr. Speakman's expression of it, but I just really I had a particular vision that I wanted to do with the kids system. At that point, I'd also gone back to college, and I was studying to be a proper sports coach. So I ended up getting a diploma in sports coaching, which here in Australia, which is one of the highest levels of qualification, an educational qualification that you can get, that is recognised by our education department and the sport and recreation sector. I got a double diploma. I got a diploma in sports coaching with a specialisation in martial arts, and a diploma in sport development. And collectively, they're Olympic qualifications. So I was qualified to teach at an Olympic level. So if we ever had Olympic Kenpo, hey, I was your man.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. But
you still do it maybe in Taekwondo? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, look, it just got, I really had a belief in that. I thought at the time, like in my career coming up with Taekwondo, there was a lot of unsavory characters around, and when more and more kids started being taught, they were being taught the wrong things by the wrong people. And as my experience grew, I started to see that and become uncomfortable with it because of all the other things I was learning. And where I wanted to take how I wanted to teach what I was teaching. I really wanted to make it like a life skill, integrated development program.
And me and you beforehand we're talking about how we like teaching with the kids and how it's important,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too about the Paxil arts, about the fact that some things you teach the kids, maybe there's another way and something different we should be teaching the kids.
Yeah, look, I love Kenpo. I absolutely love it, and the last 15 or so years, I've through Mr. Cullen's connection with Mr. Tatum, I've been, following that lineage, if you like, and it just fitted me. I like the way Mr. Tatum moves. I like the way he expresses his art. I think he's very unique in the way he expresses both visually and physically and audibly as well. And just it was I felt a connection there. I felt a good fit. And along the way, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Parker, Ed Parker Jr. We invited him out to Australia for his first visit about 2006. 2006 was. No, sorry, 2008. I'd met him previously to that in 2006 at a Graham Lilliot's camp in Wonder Valley. I went over and attended that, and that was wonderful. Mr. Elliott was awesome, and Mr. Wedlake and Mr. Johansson from Sweden. That was awesome to be exposed to that. So we invited Mr. Parker to come down in 2008, and he was actually a member of the grading panel where I did my third degree, and we made a connection back in Fresno a year or two beforehand. I had the opportunity to be his dummy when he was talking about Paxil arts, and I've gone, hey, this is really something that resonates with me, because a lot of the things that I'd learned from Mr. Blair about the importance of a belief system, and it's not all about techniques. It's all about tactics, and about that the integral development that I was studying doing my sports coaching thing. Everything just lined up, and I liked his presentation of it, and having the opportunity to feel the love directly from him. When he put hands on me, I've gone, this is something I'd be interested in. So anyway, over the last 15 years, that's been 15 years, we stayed in touch with each other. Facebook message here and there. Happy birthday. We share the same birthdays, same year. I think we're a couple of days apart, but same month, same year. So whatever it was, there was a connection, and he's always been there to answer a message or have a Zoom meeting, and I'm proud to have had this connection with him. And then when the word went out about Paxil Arts is good to go, I said, sign me up. Because I see the merit in it. I see the need for it. I'd like to be a vehicle to try, like you, and try and help spread this. I think the world we live in now, it's so volatile, and it's uncertain, it's complex, and at times it's very ambiguous. But Tony Blair said to me years ago, he said, don't mistake the trademark for the truth. And in our journey, when you spend 50 years in the martial arts, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that goes on, and as there is in any endeavor, there's the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and people, you make your own call on that. But this just came at the right time in my life, and I reached out and said I'd be interested, and here we are.
Well, on the bottom of this of this interview, I will put links for, of course, Paxil Arts, and also I'll put links for Larry Tatum stuff and for Jeff Speakman's 5.0, so people that can go about it. I don't know if yet how much we should talk about the Paxil Arts, but I will have the link down there for people to look at it and think about it. And I think it's a great direction to go. It gives some different options, and it's I think the time is it's needed. It probably has always been needed, to be honest with you, and so I'm glad to be involved in it with you and to get to meet you, Tony.
Yeah.
Now, we're making this interview here, and what I like to ask people, where do you see your life going in the future? We talked earlier about both of us being a little older. Excuse me. We're both in our 60s, and we're ambassadors now for the Paxil Arts. And I said I worry about my age and how long I have. But we do have a network. Both of us have networks of people with martial arts and students of students. So we are at a point, though, really, that even though we are in our upper years, or some people call our twilights, I don't know what that exactly means.
60's the new 40, John.
But we have a good network, and you mentioned connectivity. We have a good network between us and with us and in our own lives to spread what we are learning. And I do think that's important, and that's a good thing about that. If we were younger people and we had a longer life ahead of us, you think, oh, well, that's good because we could affect maybe more people with what we're doing right now. But in all reality, we're probably at a better point because we have a network and roots below us that can reach out to many people and continue to reach out to many people through the other people we reach out to. Just keep growing and reaching, and that's what I hope for.
Yeah, look, it's a pebble in the pond sort of scenario.
The ripples.
The ripple effect, and it's the age that we live in now. Everything is happening so fast, and what we grew up with and what we endured in our training, you couldn't do that now. As we spoke about before, in many ways it would be considered to be abuse. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's the way it was, but I do think it built a particular type of character, and for the way I try to carry myself now, it's about I believe the message of the martial arts is far beyond the punching and the kicking of it. That's all great. You can have all the meat. You can have all that, and there's a time of our lives when we can do that. But there's another time of our lives when we've got to eat through a straw. So, but it's the wisdom of all the years in between. So I think there's we're in such a privileged position as karate instructors where we have parents who, you and I share a love for teaching kids and being parents and grandparents ourselves. It's a particular connection we have, but we have this enormous responsibility because people place their trust in us. And I think certainly here in Australia, I think our education system is failing our kids. I think we're placing too much pressure on them academically without addressing, emotional resilience, mental toughness. The single most important question that we should be asking our kids, even at a young age, is what do you stand for? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And, I think there's an imperative for us, older people, that we give our young kids the right set of eyes to see things through, and the right set of ears to hear things with. Because if you think about it, for no other reason, they're going to be making decisions that are going to affect us as we get older. So we've got a vested interest in giving them the best chance of having the best chance through the wisdom, through the blood, sweat, and the tears and the scars, emotional and physical, that we've picked up in our lifetime.
I'm thinking two things here when you're saying that. I'm going to come back to, I find myself a lot of times the young people don't seem to want to take advice from when you're old. And it's a pity because there's a lot of stuff we know and we've been through. And sometimes they have to do their own problems and make a failure. But I think they need to try and listen more, at least have it in their mind and think about it, because there's a lot of things, we've all done it. I mean, you have kids and your kids try and pull a fast one on you and they go, how'd you know what I did? And you look at them like, you think we try that too? Come on. I mean,
yeah.
But we were making analogies and I was talking about roots growing and connecting and you were talking about pebbles. And then when you said about, life being rough, and sometimes they talk about bullying and anti-bullying. And if it wasn't for bullying, getting bullied, I wouldn't have become the person I was, to be honest. That kind of toughened me up. It's the reason I started taking karate when I was young. But I was thinking about the analogy of that is like we were coal, and the rough trainings and stuff we did kind of made us into diamonds. And now we're kind of like diamonds. I don't want to make that sound like I think we're perfect, but we're not. But it's our time now to reflect that light and what we've learned back at the other people. The kind of, we went through that hardening process. And now we might not be the perfect diamond, but now we have some brilliance, some ideas, some knowledge that we can help to impart to other people. And hopefully they listen somewhat. I mean, what's the percentage you hope they listen? 10%, 20%? I don't know.
There's one of the laws of learning says that if when you teach somebody something, 90% of what you share with them, they're going to forget the moment they walk out the door, unless they've got the opportunity to practice what they've just learned in an immediate space of time. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to teach them 5 swords and say, right, actually go try and find that your nearest street fight. You know what I mean? So
or follow them home and jump them. How's that? No.
Yeah, I know that might sound a bit flippant, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. That the challenge of being an instructor, and even being a parent, because I know I've made the mistake of unintentionally talking down to your kids, or speaking down from the pulpit. I think the secret is being able to connect and accept that everyone's different, and this is what I think Ed Parker, Grandmaster Parker, did so brilliantly, was how he taught with the use of analogies. So I think the real skill for an instructor is to have a language, a kit bag of analogies that are drawn from their own life experiences, that they can create a story for their students that are relevant to that student. Because what's relevant for one may not be to another, and it may not be a story. It might be one word. It might be a look. You've got to take in all the senses that are involved with learning. And I think that's a gift, and I think that goes beyond the physical ability, which at a point in time starts to degrade. It has to. Some people will say, well, those who can do and those who teach can't. You've heard that old saying before? Go and say that to someone like Stephen Hawking or Steve Jobs. Come on, put things in perspective. We have a value. We have a value, and some of us you know what? There's still a little bit of fight left in this old dog yet, but you know, we hopefully we're a little bit wiser and a little bit more emotionally secure. You know,
Well, I think talking, I think the most important thing that I've gotten from martial arts, and probably yourself also, isn't the physical part. It is the mental part. It's the focus and the drive, and we've been able to stick with it for how many years. It's become a part of our life, and I think that's what was the word you used earlier? Tenacity.
tenacity, yeah.
And it's something that we can take and carry it into every part of our life, not just practicing martial arts.
Yeah.
We can use it every part of our life, and that's what's, I think, the most important thing about it.
I believe that wholeheartedly, and you know, I've found a way that I can express my karate in my work life, in my professional connections with work, you know, and social settings and things like that. And people say, "Oh, wow, could you give me a karate lesson?" And I quite, quite proudly say, "Well, I'm giving you one now. I just gave you one." You know, so it's I think that's one of the real gifts that Grandmaster Parker left. You know, a lot of people, dump on Kenpo and say it's too intellectual, but I really bought into his idea of wanting it to be an academic endeavor. I really, really did, and like I'm a long way away from everybody, and down here in Brisbane, and all I can say honestly is I've tried to represent that intent the best way that I could, with honesty and sincerity, and because I really think it should be perceived that way, and certainly the studies that I undertook that helped me. Like I can teach delayed sword, or I can put a completely different metaphor to it, attach a completely different metaphor to it than what normally might be used, to try and explain something that I think is more important. And at one of the most important things I learned from Tony Blauer was about a belief system, and I think many martial arts don't even address that, because it doesn't matter what everybody knows what they can do, but there's not one person out there that can tell you emphatically what they would do, because of the environment dictates, right?
You can change. Everything can change.
Everything can change, but the step before the environment in the 8 considerations or the 9 considerations, some people like I subscribe to, the first one is acceptance. If you can't accept the situation, whatever it might be, good, bad, or indifferent, if you can't accept that you're in it, well, your ability to work your way through that might be degraded. And so the strength of your ability to accept and go, okay, this situation sucks, rather than be in denial about it, go, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve this, Well, how about go the other way and go, well, you know what, this sucks, but you know what, this is what I'm going to do with it. This is how I'm going to deal with it. And this leads to this, leads to that. And that's all predicated on a belief system, and your belief system is a product of your upbringing, your education, your religious beliefs, all those sorts of things. So the single biggest question that we should be asking our kids at school is, what do you stand for? Because if you don't stand for something...
You mentioned that before, and that is a good... And I think sometimes people don't know, and I had been talking with a gentleman earlier that I did an interview with, and we talked about social media, how some people just want to follow people, and just for the idea of following them, but not really knowing why they want to follow people, because other people are following people. And I'm a big believer in originality and being you, And I think sometimes today people have a hard time finding themselves. I mean,
I think that's
I
very
don't
true.
want to be too hippie-ish because I mean I do come from that time, but I mean it is important in life to find yourself, to ask questions, to ask yourself questions, to ask other people questions, and to find out about what you really do represent. That is important.
It's so important. You know, I see that as a father. You know, um, you know, it resonates with me more now than it ever did. And you know, my daughter's in her mid-20s now. You know, but um, I think it's a question that, you know, it's hard to answer. I mean, you know, next time you're out and about, just throw that question out in front of people, and you know, just see the look that you get, because it's a question that we don't get asked. You know, and that goes to your principles, and that goes to your values, and then it's like I was saying before. You know, what are you prepared to fight for? You know, and like I've defined that for me, and I'm happy to share it. You know, it's like if ever I was in the fetal position, curled up, you know, it's not going to be my black belt that make me get up. You know, I programmed myself to hear at the time my daughter's voice say, "Get up, Dad, get up," because to me that's really powerful, because no one's going to take away my right to see her grow up, get an education, get married, all that sort of stuff, get a career, and now it's my grandson. So God forbid if I was ever in that position, and hopefully I make the right choices so that doesn't happen, and barring, you know, an unfortunate, you know, unplanned event. But I would hope that I'll hear my grandson's voice say, "Get up, Dad, get up." So once I've defined that for myself now, that hey, that's what I'm prepared to fight for. I mean, physically, you know, take the genie out of the bottle for. Because the other thing that, you know, as martial artists, we tend to romanticize it a little bit, and I include myself in that. You know, we all, like I said, we all know what we could do, or what we can do, or what we have done. You know, in whatever environment you want to talk about, in the ring or in the studio or whatever. You know? But what we need to consider now is whatever we choose to do has to protect ourselves 3 times. It has to defend us 3 times. First, in the moment. Secondly, in a court of law. And thirdly, and what most people don't underestimate, is that it has to protect us against an ugly memory that we might have for the rest of our life. And that's something I don't want my daughter to have. I don't want my grandson to have. It's what I don't want to have. So because I've defined this is what I'm prepared to fight for, anything less than that, I'm walk away from. Doesn't matter. And that all came about from establishing a set of beliefs, a set of principles, and that leads to your motivation. You know, a very well-known social scientist, a guy by the name of Howard Gardner, he put forward the idea that 80% of someone's motivation to do something comes out from their expectation of the outcome. And their expectation is fueled by their beliefs. And, last time this happened, this is what happened. So, and because we are genetically, evolution has us hardwired to be negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's hardwired us to be negative for protection. You know, push away danger. Okay. So we have this tendency to want to look at the negative side of things in establishing belief system. And the most important thing when we talk about a self-defense situation is, or any situation where you're challenged, you know, is you must not lead feelings to failure. And I think what we're embarking on with the martial arts and Ed's own experiences and his beliefs, I think they're in complete, for me, they're in complete alignment, and that vertical integration. You know, we've been talking about heart, mind, and soul.
Right.
There's a term in Japanese called kokoro, which means like to merge the heart and the mind, and that's, you know, mind, body, spirit, intuition, and we're exploring those sorts of things. So I think we've got an opportunity to really to do what we do in the service of something that's greater than us. And I'm sitting here, John. I'm half a world away. I've never met you before. We've been talking for, nearly 4 hours. And
yeah, we've been talking a long time, and this interview part now has been over a half hour. We should probably end the interview part.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like what you said, and now I'm going to put links I said below this for people listening to for Tatum, for the 5.0, and for the Paxil Arts. Do you have any website or anything of your own, Tony?
Not at the moment, John. As I mentioned to you before, we've just recently sold our home. Downsizing, empty nesting, and we've just relocated. So I've just been doing like seminars and some private lessons and stuff like that for the moment, and immersing myself in being a student again.
Well, what I'd hope to do is I'm going to end this interview with the people, for the people, and hope in the future we can do another one to let people know how things have been going, how you're going, and we're spread the word some more about the Paxil Arts, and hopefully, I wish you the best in life and with I'd say and with martial arts and Paxil Arts, but I mean at this point that is part of our lives, and I don't think we would function without it. It is part of us.
It's part of our DNA now, without a doubt, and just like how we've come together, and like you feel it, right?
Yes, this has been great today. Well, let me end this interview part, and hopefully people will learn some more, check out some of the links, and find out some more about the things that we talked about today.
Thank you,
Tony.
It's been a pleasure, John. Thank you.